Running Aces Casino and Racetrack is the Twin Cities' premier choice for exciting entertainment, 24/7 gaming and dining, monthly comedy shows, and $1 blackjack with no commission or ante, making it the most player-friendly casino around. Trout Air Tavern at Running Aces offers Minnesota-inspired handcrafted dishes with locally sourced ingredients and the trout that made the area famous. Running Aces Casino and Racetrack, 25 minutes north of downtown. Visit runaces.com. Running Aces, your night out is waiting. TCL is a proud sponsor of the 1500 ESPN studios. TCL, America's fastest growing TV brand.
For those who simply can't get enough talk about the Vikings, we present Bonus Chatter. Bonus chatter about your favorite team that's unscripted, unfiltered, and uninterrupted. This is another edition of 1500 ESPN's Purple Podcast.
Hello, welcome to the post-Minnesota Vikings Green Bay Packers Purple Podcast. Matthew Coller along with Judd Zulgad in the press box at US Bank Stadium following a huge victory for the Minnesota Vikings. Judd, we went into this game. There was a graphic that ESPN had that if the Vikings did not win this game, that their playoff odds would drop all the way down to 26%. And if they did win the game, they would jump up to 71%. And we are at the 71%. So where do you want to start, Judd? Lots to talk about here. There's a head coach on the Green Bay side that his seat is scalding hot. There's probably a frustrated Green Bay quarterback. There is a vindicated offensive coordinator and quarterback on the Vikings side, and a very, very happy defensive-minded head coach whose defensive line was as good as it was supposed to be on this night. Where do you want to begin?
Well, I'd like to start off with an appreciation for one person. And I believe that if you're a Viking fan, you have to value this man's presence tonight completely and say thank you, Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy is he at one time, I think he was an effective head coach. I think at one time he was a good play caller. But the National Football League, as we know it, has passed him by. And thanks to the thousands of people who own Packer stock and still employ him, the Vikings won tonight because this game was 14-all at the half. The Vikings had missed 2 field goals, and I really felt in the first half like it was a game of hot potato, Matthew, where teams were like, I don't want it, you take it. No, I don't want it, you take it. And they went back and forth until Mike McCarthy decided in his own territory to go for it on 4th and 1. And what was the play call? It wasn't to feature Aaron Rodgers, who was going to walk immediately to Canton when his career is done. It wasn't to get creative. It was to run up the middle against the Minnesota Vikings defense. Harrison Smith stopped it. Vikings take possession. Yes, they stall, but they get a field goal. But I really felt that when this game went to 17-14, it was game over. So I think because Mike McCarthy is going to be fired, it should be tonight, but it won't be. It won't be tomorrow. It'll probably be on Black Monday after this season comes to an end. But I really believe that Vikings fans should be very appreciative because the last couple of years, and especially tonight, were spent wasting a Hall of Fame quarterback. And if you're a Viking fan, nothing wrong with that. You should be very happy. So I would like to start by saying from all Vikings fans, thank you, Mike McCarthy. This was a nice parting gift from you and an early Christmas present to the Vikings.
What an unbelievable 2 weeks for Mike McCarthy. Last week, he plays against the Seattle Seahawks, has 4th and 2, and decides to punt the ball away only to have Seattle run the clock out on him. And this week, he decides to run the ball at Linval Joseph, in which I talked to the entire defensive line after the game, and the constant theme, depending on which guy you talk to, was thank you, please do that all year long, all opposing coaches. If you want to run it, Linval Joseph and now Sheldon Richardson or Tom Johnson, who's in there a lot, or whoever else, if you want to run it, Everson Griffin, Daniil Hunter, you go ahead and run right at those people. I mean, it just boggles the mind. Going for it there is not super defensible on your side of the field. Absolutely. That's just a bad plan, especially after he didn't go for it on the other side of the field earlier in the game, but taking the ball out of the hands of Aaron Rodgers seems to be a consistent theme with Mike McCarthy, and that is mind-boggling and incredible, and there's no way he should continue to coach that football team. But for this evening, the Minnesota Vikings benefit in huge, huge fashion. They did what they were supposed to do, and then once David Bakhtiari went out with an injury, it seemed that the Packers' offensive line completely fell apart, and the defensive line for the Vikings annihilated the Green Bay offensive line, which has been very good this season in general, but it starts with their left tackle, who's tremendous, and the fact they couldn't shut down Everson Griffin. They got after Rodgers on a consistent basis and were able to take care of business once they got up. Is there anything else you want to say about McCarthy? Because I want to swing to Kirk Cousins here.
No, there's not. No. He essentially took a game that I felt that both teams were afraid to win and said, I'm going to screw this up beyond belief, but just be prepared, because the next time the Packers play a game here, they're going to do so with a great quarterback and a more competent head coach. So I guess, in short, enjoy tonight's win, because the Packers helped you, and that's not going to be the norm, because Mike McCarthy is going to be gone after the 2018 season, and now on to Kirk Cousins.
And usually Bill Belichick does not make that mistake, so next week I think you're facing a little tougher.
Oh, this was a huge win.
Yes, it is. It is, because it takes really the pressure off the next 2 weeks. If they were to have lost this game, they would have gone into the next 2 weeks thinking they needed 2 wins on the road against Brady and Wilson. Now, if you split those, or even if you lose both of those, you're still ahead of Green Bay and in good shape and all set, more likely than not, because Green Bay would have to win 2. You'd have to lose 2. A lot would have to happen in order for Green Bay to get back close to where the Vikings are now. And you look at the other teams who are in the race. There's the 6-5 Seattle. You got 6-5 Carolina. Well, now the Vikings feel like they're in very good shape going into that wild card race, and they could still chase down Chicago. They'll have a game at the end of this season where they'll potentially have that opportunity. So it's a huge win. But I want to go to Kirk Cousins, because last Sunday, Kirk Cousins lost the game against Chicago with 2 very poor interceptions. They could not move the ball in the first half. All the pressure this week was on Cousins and offensive coordinator, and he came in and performed brilliantly. The start of this game, the first 2 drives, we were rolling eyes up here, and I think a lot of fans were getting quite anxious after those 2 drives, especially when Aaron Rodgers went down and threw a touchdown pass. The fact that Cousins responded, put up pretty big numbers here tonight, huge numbers. They could have finished a few more drives and put up a few more points, but other than that, there's very little to criticize and a lot to praise about Kirk Cousins' overall performance. And I would like to say, let us put to rest the bogus narrative that the guy can't play in primetime. He had a bad game against the top defense. He performed mostly well against the Rams and Saints, aside from some faux pas, of course. But his career, when I looked back at all the primetime games that he had played, it was the same as you've always gotten from Kirk Cousins, which is some amazing, some bad, and a lot in the middle. And tonight, he landed on an amazing square and played exceptionally well against a very beat-up defense that did not have Mike Daniels and 2 of their cornerbacks. They took full advantage, got the ball to the receivers. A great night for Kirk Cousins.
The issue with Kirk is this, very simply, Coller. When Cousins' bad comes along, it's really bad. And so it stands out. Now, the key to me tonight was this: security of the football, right? No picks. And if you saw tonight, anytime there was pressure, he took that football and secured it in a big way. I believe that somebody has gotten through to him to say, Kirk, if you're going to maybe get sacked or maybe run the football, it can't be loose, that we can't have that. So I thought that security of the football is absolutely paramount, important, and he was successful in doing that tonight. The interesting post-game assessment from Zim, who praised Flip up and down, because, of course, he criticized John DeFilippo last week and came back tonight and said, he called a great game. He incorporated Rudolph. He did this. He did that. The interesting comment, though, from Zim regarding Cousins, and I think this is going to be taken away as a negative by some, but it's absolutely not, but it's incredibly accurate. And is it what you want to say about a guy who you're paying the type of cash that they're paying Cousins? I don't know, but it's what you need to win, especially with this defense. We heard about how he did an excellent job of managing the football game. Okay? Now, managing a football game to me has become this, oh my God, he's a game manager. He's not worth, but that's not true. This defense can win you games, and we've talked about this 1,000 times. If Kirk Cousins is playing at his optimal level, he can make some huge throws. He can make some big plays. There are plays that he can make that take him up a notch. But what you need from him the majority of the time, you can't have fumbles. You can't have picks. You need a smart game. So I found it very interesting, and I don't think it was a mistake that in talking about Cousins' game, the head coach talked about management of the game and that being very good. And I think that you'll have some folks saying, oh, wow, well, what does that mean? I think it means exactly what Mike Zimmer wants, which is consistency, quality play, and nothing dumb.
Yep, not turning the ball over when there were some chances that he could have taken and decided not to and ate the football instead of winging it. That winging it is a word that we have used over and over with him because it will just seem like, there's some pressure, let it go, chuck and duck, as he said in his very first press conference. We didn't see any of that tonight, and we also saw the distribution of the ball much better. And I don't know if that's DeFilippo or if that's Kirk Cousins, but that was something really worth looking at, is getting the ball to Dalvin Cook right away on a screen pass. Yes. Imagine that. Where was that last week? Where has that been for most of the season, the screen passes to the running backs? Even when Delvin has been out, you can throw them to Latavius Murray. He can catch the football and run with it.
And they're akin to runs. They're run plays, right? Like, I think we get far too hung up on that really wasn't a screen. It was this. Who cares? The short passing game.
Right.
For this team to be successful, they need to be able to execute because their run game is flawed. That's just a fact, and it's not going away. But if you get the ball to Cook, and let's say it's a, 5-yard pass, guess what? That is a run play. And so, yes, I thought tonight we saw Cousins play the exact game that if this team is going to be successful for the remainder of the season, you absolutely have to see, which is not a dynamic game. It's a really smart game. And if things break down or start to go wrong, you eat the football, but you do it by tucking it and not fumbling it.
I think that Zimmer probably doesn't mind that there were a few sacks that were allowed there because they weren't turnovers, and that's okay. If you take a sack here and there that doesn't wreck your entire game or give the other team an opportunity to score off a turnover or short field or something like that. So the fact that he did not do that on a very big stage here in a really important game where he's going toe-to-toe with Aaron Rodgers, it says the guy's fine, primetime, he is who he is. There was nothing ever to that, but he needed to show it, though, right? Going 0-3 primetime against good teams. Right, he needed to show that.
The dumb mistakes have to go away because, and we've said this for weeks now, the dumb Cousins plays cost you games and seasons. If he eliminates those, guess what? You're probably fine.
Well, yeah, and part of that is throwing to people like Dalvin Cook and Kyle Rudolph. And you mentioned Rudolph. That one drive was fueled by a couple of throws right to Kyle Rudolph. And when John DeFilippo took over, we thought, yeah, they're going to throw 80 passes to Kyle Rudolph, and that hasn't really been the case, but that was something that Pat Shurmur did really, really well. And there were a lot of pages that were pulled from the Pat Shurmur book. I've got to wonder if Zimmer went through the things that he loved from last year that he wanted to see carry over. The screenplay that goes for a touchdown is a Shurmur play. Like, down to the detail of putting Kyle Rudolph in the backfield and having him go to the left and Dalvin Cook to the right. That's a play that they used last year against the Tampa Bay Bucks with Dalvin Cook that I even featured in an article last week about how they needed to kick up the screen game because against the Lions, they had hit on a couple that were very close to breaking big plays, very close, like tripping on a guy's leg or a throw that needed to be a little bit better on the screen. And then they abandon it against Chicago, and I just don't understand that. So sometimes I guess the pressure that comes from Mike Zimmer can work when he's putting it on some people because they changed a lot here. And Cousins, with the big game that he had, I think is huge for them going down the stretch to prove that he could win it. Because even though I know from a close investigation that he has been himself in prime time, and it's kind of random that he just didn't come out with the wins and losses, and his team wasn't that good in Washington for some of those times, that doesn't mean that they don't know, though. You know what I mean? Like,
but I think the prime time thing, though, I think that also is part and parcel of when he screws up, it's pretty big. And in prime time, everybody's watching that.
Right.
And so if he plays a noon game, right, and let's say he makes 10 really good plays, 40 okay plays, and 3 atrocious plays, you might see those 3 atrocious plays. You might not because everybody else is essentially playing during that time. But if he does that in a primetime game, everyone's like, oh, my God, that play was terrible. And so I think the primetime narrative comes as a result of the fact that those things stand out so much more than. It might not be fair, but it goes back to what you keep saying, and it's accurate. There are a lot of games where Kirk Cousins is just Kirk Cousins, and he's going to make some really, really bad plays. And for this team to achieve the success that they hope to have, the most important thing is you need to find a way, and it might be talking to him, it might be getting mad, I don't know what, but you need to find a way to eliminate those, let's say, 3 clunkers, because they can't happen.
Well, I think it was important, though, to have the primetime game for the players in the locker room and on that offense to believe in Kirk Cousins. Sure. I mean, because they are still adapting to him as their quarterback and his leadership style that we've broken down a number of different times, and his personality and how he plays and things like that. And, you know, I don't know if every player is going to go through my article with a fine-tooth comb, or if they're going to hear that. I know.
They might not.
They might not.
That's BS.
You know,
what are you talking about?
And see if the narrative makes sense or not. They're going to see if they had lost tonight with Cousins and he hadn't played well. I mean, that would have been 4 primetime games against good teams.
Yep.
I'm still calling this a good team in Green Bay, that they would have lost. I think it's a huge swing in the playoff percentages, but it's also a huge swing in how they view him as their franchise quarterback, the guys inside that locker room.
Now, allow me to slow you down just a little bit on this fact, though. This Green Bay team is not good. So I hate to you went and played on the road in Chicago against a Bears defense that's really good. And your game plan stunk. You, for the most part, stunk, and that team lost. This Green Bay game, the problem that I've had with this Vikings team a few times so far during the course of the 2018 season is they'll beat a team like the Packers or Detroit. And I'll say, oh, yeah, that's great. And the wins are important. But, man, I still really would love to see this team go to the Patriots a week from today, or Seattle, which is going to be an incredibly tough game, and win a game like that and play a really smart defensive first type of game. Because I do need to see the Vikings beat a team that at least is, if not with a winning record, a good team, or a team that I consider to be a good team, preferably on the road. At halftime tonight, I sat here thinking, you know what? There were a couple nice drives by the Vikings. It's tied at 14. But I also thought to myself, we're seeing them shoot themselves in the foot just a bit too much. And so I think to be completely convinced about this team, or a little bit more to jump onto that side of the fence, I really do want to see them a week from Sunday go into Foxborough and play a really good, smart game. No quarterback mistakes. Things might go wrong here and there, but come back from that. So when we did the podcast after the Detroit game here, I sort of did the same thing that I'm doing tonight. And I go, oh, hey, you know, it's good, and they did this and that. And I do come back to the fact that the biggest excitement that we've had about this team this year is beating teams that they should beat, which is all well and good. Now go win a game where I thoroughly don't expect that you're going to.
Well, the rest of the way.
Does that sound fair?
It is, because they haven't beat a team with a winning record.
I know.
And when we looked at the schedule initially, we thought, oh, it's going to be really hard, but they've gotten through it with beating only the teams that are bad by their records. I mean, you know, this team tonight did not have a very good defense. With Mike Daniels in there, it's a lot better, especially with the way the Vikings struggle on the interior. But not having Mike Daniels, you could really tell the difference there. And missing some of the defensive backs, there was a real difference there. I think Kevin King is a pretty good player, and he was out. And so, you know, we saw Stephon Diggs spin a guy around like a top on a touchdown catch. And that just, you know, I mean, things like that are helped out by the fact that defense is not in very good shape. And overall, looking at their record with their coach in consideration here, they usually will give you a chance to win the game, this current iteration of the Packers. And I think I saw in Rodgers' last 17 games, he's 8-1. So, I mean, this team really hasn't been super dangerous in quite some time, and now they will actually face a very dangerous New England team, and then a team that I have a lot of respect for in Seattle. But really, I mean, you go the rest of the way, you got Detroit again, you got Miami, and then Chicago. The only game that they can't really I guess that I would look at as a Super Bowl contender aside from the Patriots is the game in Week 17. The rest of the way, if you split one of the next two,
they're in good shape, yeah.
Then, I mean, you can roll to the playoffs if you just split one of the next two.
I'm just saying impress me.
Right.
I want to be impressed.
Right.
I want to see them go into Foxborough, win, and say, "Wow, that's a impressive win." And because I feel like we see games like we did tonight, and I still can't translate the product that we saw tonight or against Detroit to the playoffs. Right. And I think this team right now is in very good shape to make the playoffs. But I think the question then becomes, do we see them as a team that can make the playoffs and win a game or 2 games or what? And so I'd like to see this win tonight taken into next week, and you pile up an impressive win there against the Patriots. And now you say to yourself, hold on a second here, that when you get to the playoffs, this team could have a real chance, and I don't know that I'm there yet.
Lucky's 13 Pubs has you covered for the best game day experience this football season. Tons of TVs, legendary appetizers, amazing fresh half-pound burgers, handcrafted sandwiches, and a wide variety of other pub favorites. The drink menu is awesome, too. Huge selection of tap beer, handcrafted cocktails, and the best Bloody Marys in town. Seriously, these Bloodies are awesome. Try the Bacon Bloody, the Jalapeno Bloody, the Mother Mary, or just get a flight and try them all. Plus, Lucky's 13 celebrates Sunday Fun Day. Happy hour all day long on Sunday, every Sunday. Events and prize giveaways during games, too. Lucky's 13 has locations in Bloomington, Burnsville, Mendota, Plymouth, and Roseville. Having people over for the game? Call ahead to Lucky's and order some of those legendary apps, and they'll be ready to bring home when you get there. It's football time at Lucky's 13 Pubs. Find them online at luckys13pub.com. luckys13pub.com. It's the most wonderful time of the year, football time. And Lucky's 13 Pubs has you covered for the best game day experience. luckys13pub.com.
So last year we had the Rams win. That was what did
Absolutely.
it for us. That was what put us over the
Absolutely.
top, and we decided, okay, this is definitely a Super Bowl team. I think they took a small step, but not the big step that you're looking for. That really couldn't have been done tonight because this Packers team is just not.
It would have been last week.
It's not anywhere in that echelon of a Chicago, New Orleans, or the Rams, and they have not passed those tests. Let's get to a couple of the smaller things in this game on the Viking side. So
Kicking?
we know, yes, we know that Mike McCarthy botched the game management. The game management for Mike Zimmer was very interesting. Going for it a couple times, then not. At the end of the game, I loved going for it to just put a bullet in them, even though it didn't work. And then the kicking situation, the end of the first half situation management, we could start there. I thought that they mismanaged the clock again because they were too afraid of Aaron Rodgers. Even though their defense had been playing pretty well against Rodgers, I thought they should have been much more aggressive and tried to get Bailey closer. I mean, you set him up with a 50-plus yard field goal because you let the clock go down 40 seconds. I mean, I think that one of these things is an issue and the other isn't. That the clock management at the end of halves is definitely an issue, and it has been all season long. Mm-hmm. And I think the going for it on fourth downs, that Zimmer has consistently, I think, been on the right side of those for the most part. The only one that was really questionable was in New Orleans, where they gave the ball back to Breeze on their side of the field. Didn't love that one. That was kind of a coin flip. But other than that, this season, I think he's been very good with the fourth downs and being aggressive, but really not good. Not just Zimmer, but Kirk Cousins, John DeFilippo, everyone on the offensive side at the end of first halves, and it might ultimately be an issue in a big game.
And the first half, was this the third time tonight that we've seen that? We saw Cousins mismanage the clock, something horrible in the Coliseum against the Rams.
Week 1
at the end of the first half. Week 1, and then tonight. And I got a bunch of tweets saying, they didn't want to put the ball back in Rodgers and the Packers' hands at the end of the first half. All right. If they had managed the clock really well at the end of the first half until tonight, I'd say I don't know that I agree with that decision, but clearly the people who responded to me on Twitter are right. But they just look like, and Kirk especially, it looks at times like they don't have a clue there. So I don't know if this was all about we don't want the Packers to get the ball back, which with the way that the Vikings defense was playing by that point, I don't agree with, or if it was, well, we sort of didn't want that, but we also don't have a clue. And I think this comes down to Cousins' feel for the clock and the game, especially at that point, doesn't seem to be good. And so I agree with you on that. The fourth down stuff, I think Zimmer's come a long way in a lot of game. I think year one, there were a lot of things that we saw where he tried to manage the clock and downs and failed. And to his credit, I think he's learned and gotten pretty good. But I really believe, unless I can be proven wrong about this, that the end of the half clock management issues are as much on the QB, if not more. And he doesn't seem to have the proper sense of urgency or ability to manage that. And I don't know in this point in his career if that can be learned or what. But it was watching them sort of, I don't know, methodically move down the field as the clock is ticking. And at one point, what was the play that we were talking about where you said there were 40 seconds that came off? Because you're watching that thinking, what the hell are they doing?
It was 2nd and 18 with 1 minute and 10 seconds to go, and they let a ton of time go off and then got a completion and set themselves up, I think, 3rd and 7, and then let even more time go off before running a play. But then they didn't give themselves enough time. And at that point, the Packers, I believe, were out of timeouts. So,
yeah, I mean,
you'd be talking about punting it all the way down into their 20-yard line and then forcing Rodgers to go the whole field in 30 seconds. I mean, not that he can't do it, but, I mean, why are you letting him dictate what you can do there?
And the Packers were out of timeouts because they used 2 timeouts thinking that they could get the ball back. And I was talking to a reporter from Green Bay who said he's got no clue there. McCarthy, I mean, the whole thing was a Marx Brothers skit. Watching the Vikings attempt to move the ball, watching McCarthy call timeouts, it was like, what is anybody doing here? Yeah. It's like a comedy. Yeah. It was really bad.
At that point, yes, that both sides were botching that in every way they possibly could have, and eventually we got to the half with a miss from Dan Bailey, who also missed from 46, is it, or 48?
I've got it. I
believe it was 46.
He missed from 48 wide left,
48,
and then 56.
Okay.
He made what? He made the one from 51, is that correct? But there was a penalty?
Yeah.
He attempted one, penalty, false start,
yeah,
moves the ball back, and so he was guilty for the most part, really, of one miss, 48 yards wide.
Yeah, 56 yards. I mean, I can't really blame anyone for that.
And he got hit on the play as well. So, but yes, he did. Became the 4th field goal attempt to be missed by a Vikings kicker, Daniel Carlson or Dan Bailey, against the Packers this season.
So, what is your trust level on a 1 to 10 scale of Dan Bailey if that same kick inside 50 yards needs to be made in a postseason contest?
Oh, you know what? Daniel Carlson, it would have been a 2 right now, maybe a -2. I'm going to say about a 7. I think he makes it. I think he hasn't been fantastic, but I think a veteran kicker, because I don't think he's going to panic about it, I think he makes it. So I'm going to give him a 7 on a scale of 1 to 10 as far as trust goes inside 50 yards.
I think he's basically been what Kai Forbath would have given them, a guy that you're not going to hit from 60 yards, but mostly reliable. Still, you have to hold your breath a little bit. Forbath missed more extra points. Bailey seems to be fairly reliable when it comes to the extra points. At that moment when he missed it, I thought, well, they will be looking for a new kicker tomorrow. But, the state of kicking around the NFL, Judd, I think that they just got to ride or die with Kai Forbath. Dan Bailey.
What is your theory? Kicking in this league, what's happened?
I have no idea. Just overnight, it seemed like it fell apart.
It was as if, all right, so they moved the PAT back, 3 years ago now? 2 years ago?
Yeah.
All right. And the league did that very much on purpose to add intrigue to the PAT and perhaps incentivize teams to go for 2.
And can I just stop you right there?
Yeah.
Add intrigue to the PAT is something that only the NFL would be dumb enough to do. But go on.
Okay. So then you thought to yourself, okay, this is going to make it more of an adventure. And, of course, a lot of coaches still are hesitant to go for 2, so they went for the PATs, and guys started to miss. But it's as if that started a snowball effect, and now we got PATs missed. We've got field goals missed. Graham Gano today for Carolina missed a potential field goal that would have beat the Seahawks. The state of kicking now is so weird because, 4 or 5 years back, the percentages were incredible. And basically nobody
Bailey
missed.
Was a big part of that.
Nobody missed for a while. And now, you're right. Okay, you cut Dan Bailey and you're going where now? Back to Kai Forbath?
That's right, yeah.
It's just but yeah, it is. I am amazed at how interesting place kicking has turned into after a while back. We thought to ourselves, it's one of the surest thing in the sport.
Yep. So they, I think, have to stick with Dan Bailey. There's no other really good option. It's clear that the NFL has just moved beyond Kai Forbath for whatever reason.
Did he do something?
I don't know, because like Graham Gano, you mentioned, he's missed a bunch of extra points, but people are fine with him as a kicker. It was 89% of field goals over the 2 years he was here, and then he can't find
Forbath.
Forbath.
Okay.
And he can't find a job, and like these other teams are signing guys out of college, undrafted free agents.
Daniel Carlson got picked up.
I mean, it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. Carlson gets picked up, although I understand that. Oakland's in a great place to pick him up because there's no pressure kicks. That's for sure. They could just evaluate him. When we look at how the defense played, as bad as it was for Mike McCarthy calling this game, and we feel like he just put Aaron Rodgers in a bad spot. Did you see anything that would even hint at being a misdirection run by? I mean, we saw the Chicago Bears and we saw the Los Angeles Rams misdirection this team to death.
I know.
And then we come in here and it's like they never watched the tape. And we saw Mike McCoy get fired for this, where he brought Arizona in here and they ran nothing that would help David Johnson get in space, and then he got fired. And then they come in after just watching the Bears use all this horizontal stuff, getting guys open, getting guys in space, and they do none of it. None of it.
Matthew, it's very, very simple. Mike McCarthy was hired by the Packers as their coach the same year that Childress was hired by the Vikings, which is 2006. And Mike McCarthy is very much still calling plays and coaching in, I would say, circa 2011 or so.
Yeah.
He just hasn't adjusted. He hasn't adapted. And guess what? Shocking, I know. He's stubborn as hell, right? So it's as if he won't. Aaron Rodgers, every waking moment that I see him playing football now, looks miserable. And I don't blame him. There's no adapting. There's no adjusting. And you're right. The Vikings defense has issues. They're good, but they have issues that can be exploited. And the Green Bay Packers attempted to exploit zero of those. And despite that fact, at halftime of tonight's game, this game was potentially a toss-up. And the Green Bay Packers did everything that they could to lose this game. And I don't understand how you can watch film of, as you said, I don't know, the Rams game, the Bears game, take your pick, and still come out and say, we're going to run our system. But they did it.
And so the defense in response dominated on the defensive line, because if you're not moving them around and you're just letting them pass rush you, they are four of the best players, and I'll add Tom Johnson as being another great player who's very successful in the pass rush.
Your guy,
he picks up a sack. He is my guy. Tom and I talked after the game. We shared a moment. I asked him.
You called him Tommy. You call him Tommy?
TJ. Yeah, I call him TJ.
Just call him T?
He calls me the one guy that he's fairly recognizable to him.
Hey, one guy.
Hey, guy there who I've seen before. But Tom Johnson has added another layer to this. Stephen Weatherly has added another layer to this. But if you're going to beat the Vikings, leaving a backup, or I believe they moved Bulaga from the right to the left. Is that what happened?
You know what I was?
Okay,
I'd
I'd have to go back.
That would make sense.
I'm going to have to go back and check the tape.
That would make sense.
But when you lose Bakhtiari, who's an amazing player.
Yes, very good.
And then you still keep running the same stuff. To leave Everson Griffin one-on-one, he's going to murder you. And that's what he did. He just murdered them. And it blows my mind that they stole nothing from the Rams. They stole nothing from Chicago. And they just kept making Rodgers make great throws. Like in the first half, all Rodgers did was make these great throws.
Yep.
But asking him to do that for full games is a little bit tough for any quarterback, even the best.
Especially when you've got film basically illustrating to you what you can do against this defense to be successful. That's the incredible thing. And you've got a quarterback who can do those things in spades probably, and you're still like, just do that thing that you always do. It's so cool to watch. And so, but you know what? It's fine. The Vikings win. The Gophers beat the Badgers. All I know is that Minnesota sports fans are going to be very happy, and that's why I am a fountain of positivity towards Minnesota football for this weekend.
Well, to put a wrap on it, I would say that if there was one game this year that they needed, it was this one.
This was a must-win.
They did not need Chicago. They wanted Chicago. But they needed this one. It was a must-win for their playoff chances. If they botch this, Green Bay does not have the toughest schedule going down the stretch.
Yep.
So Green Bay, even if they're a mess, will still get some wins.
And Carolina and Seattle and Washington potentially.
Yep.
So you could that game in Seattle, if they had lost this game tonight, would have been absolutely huge.
Yep.
And now it's important, but it's not the same. No, I think the loss in Chicago made this an absolute must-win. And I never thought that they would lose this game, but I was curious how the Packers would approach this game, and the Packers did the Vikings a tremendous favor. And because of that, now to your point, if you split the Patriots and Seattle, you feel good about yourself. And even if you lose both those games, you don't feel like, oh boy, we're basically dead.
So this last week felt like we were on the edge of this season falling apart, and they were. And they walked up to the edge, and Mike McCarthy said, no, back off that edge. Don't you worry.
I got this for you.
You are right in good
I'm
shape.
jumping myself.
But there was no bigger game this entire season than right here, and they come away with a win, and Kirk Cousins with his best performance, I would say, of the entire season, because he didn't turn the ball over. There was no late-game fumble. There was no accidental pick.
Do you think?
There was the fumble in Philly that kept the Eagles in the game.
That performance was pretty good. He made some great throws.
Yeah. This one, I think,
this was the smartest.
Better.
This was the blueprint for what you need.
Yep, correct.
Okay. Agreed. Because if you get this, and your defense plays to its capabilities, you're in pretty good shape.
And a complete game with both of Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs dominating, respectively. So spreading the ball around.
Oh, you know what? We forgot.
Way to go. Yes.
Laquan Treadwell, another drop.
Oh, yeah.
Just end it.
Yep.
End the experiment.
Aldrick Robinson is fine.
Yep. Just end it. Laquan should be your fourth guy.
Aldrick Robinson catches everything they throw at him.
I know he does. And Cousins likes him, and he trusts him
Yep.
to remove the temptation.
If he gets 2 catches a game, you're in good shape. Let him be your Jarius Wright for the season, and just forget about the first-round pick. I agree. Okay.
Yes, because that is everything that the Vikings do from tonight on has to be not with an eye of what makes you look smart, or if you drafted a guy in the first round. If you want to have playoff success, everything that they do from tonight on has to be as wise a move for the playoffs as possible. And Robinson might not win games by himself, but I don't think he's going to kill you. Laquan Treadwell has a good chance to do something, because here's the problem. Kirk throws him the ball. Kirk's sort of like, well, you're there, I'm going to throw you the football, and you're like, no, don't do that. That's all I got for you.
So we've got our Purple Live show coming up on Tuesday. Make sure that you tune in. That is live, as the name suggests, on 1500 ESPN. So make sure you tune into that or stream it online, or you feel free to call in, 6 o'clock Central Time.
And then you've also got your Thursday night Lucky's 13 show, correct?
Where is that? Bloomington?
Yes.
All right.
And I believe that is this coming Thursday as well.
Wonderful.
You're going to be a busy man. You love the public appearances.
I know.
You love to talk to people. You love the public appearances. The public loves me, and I know that.
That's the problem.
I know
that they all want Zulgad autographs.
Oh, and I get all these tweets about how great I am and about how I love the Gophers.
People want you to give them their own Zulgad headlines. So, like, they tell you about your life, and then, like, how would you put this in a headline, Judd? So anyway, okay, we've got that. Bloomington and Sage Rosenfels will be back from Mexico or wherever he was on vacation, and we will talk to you then.
Want entertainment designed just for you? Then check out customizable streaming TV from Xfinity. It makes your life simple, easy, awesome.
Xfinity gives you customizable streaming TV options. Enjoy the most free shows anywhere on any device, and even access your streaming apps right on your TV with X1. Go to Xfinity.com, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit a store today to learn more. Restrictions apply.
Climate Report. I'm Tim McGuire with an AP News Minute. The White House quietly releases a new report on climate change.
The report frequently contradicts the president, who's often questioned how much climate change is caused by humans.
AP Sagar Meghani, the report, which is required by law, warns extreme weather disasters such as wildfires and hurricanes are getting worse and far more costly for the United States. Trump administration asked the Supreme Court to fast-track a trio of cases challenging the president's decision to prevent certain transgender people from serving in the military. This is the 4th time in recent months the administration has sought to bypass lower courts that have blocked some of its more controversial proposals and pushed the high court to weigh in quickly. A conservative writer and associate of Trump confidant Roger Stone, Jerome Corsi, tells the AP he is in plea talks with special counsel Robert Mueller's team. Mueller's team questioned Corsi as part of an investigation into Stone's connections with WikiLeaks. I'm Tim McGuire.